Hello friends, this is Worm, and I'm back with another episode of the Perk Forge. This is a series where we take a look at weak or underused perks in Destiny 2 and talk about how we can make them better. And as you can see on screen over here, we're going to talk about Dragonfly today. And I want to point something out about Dragonfly real quick. I don't think Dragonfly is by any means a bad perk, but Dragonfly is so outdated at this point. And it's outshined by all of these subclass synergizing perks, things like Incandescent, Volt Shot, Destabilizing Rounds. Like all of these, even though there are some core differences, which we'll talk about in just a second, like they're all generally more preferred than Dragonfly. So I want to talk about how we can potentially make Dragonfly better. But of course, let's talk about what Dragonfly actually does before we can talk about how to make it better. So it says here, on a precision kill, the target explodes, dealing 123.89 elemental damage over a roughly 4.5 meter radius. Now granted, this 123.89, this is scaled differently inside of PvE activities, so it will probably deal a couple hundred, maybe even a couple thousand damage on the explosion. But that's roughly what we're looking at here. And this, again, this is not a bad perk. This is a pretty decent ad clear perk, as a matter of fact. In fact, I actually have a ringing nail still with Rampage and Dragonfly, which is really fun, really good. But again, it is outshined by these subclass synergizing perks like Volt Shot and Headstone and stuff like that. And so I think in order to make Dragonfly a more viable option, we're gonna have to do a couple of things to tweak it to make it something that is, better to use. Okay, and the first thing that I think could potentially go for this perk is increasing the detonation radius. Okay, increase it from 4.5 roughly to probably, I would say, scale it up to like 6 meters, like give it a really big explosion radius. Now inside PvP, I think it should stay 4.5 meters. Again, we don't want little nukes going off that are gonna destroy teammates. We don't need a Cloud Strike situation. Gosh, y'all remember Cloud Strike back in the days before it got nerfed. We don't want a situation like that. So PvE, PvP tuned differently. But in PvE, I think that the radius of that explosion should be larger, just so that it has more area of effect to cover. Again, things like Incandescent and was a Destabilizing Round, sorry, I couldn't think of the name. These perks, like, they have pretty large areas of effect, but you also get the benefits of the subclass synergy. Incandescent, of course, you light enemies on fire and they're starting to burn out around you, so that's free damage on top of what you've already got going on. Now, I think the other thing that Dragonfly probably could benefit from is simply a damage boost. We see, again, Incandescent, for example. Incandescent doesn't deal a whole lot of damage, but it's able to spread that damage around enemies very efficiently. And of course, it can synergize with our subclass. Now, I don't think Dragonfly necessarily needs to synergize with our subclass, but I think that having the ability to deal a substantially increased amount of damage, that way if you are in a Grandmaster Nightfall or something like that, where, enemies are a lot tankier, they have more health, stuff like that. Dragonfly could be something that, this is a very strong ad clear perk, but the strength that you're trading off is the inability to use it with your subclass, your subclass stuff, right? So you have, let's say just a bow with Dragonfly, a void bow with Dragonfly. You get a precision kill, and instead of spreading volatile that will allow you to make potentially void breaches, and stuff like that, instead of Incandescent, which can make maybe fire sprites, as well as cause ignitions, you're getting a trade-off of a larger explosion. Now, I don't think the explosion needs to be scaled to the point of like an ignition, because that's just a ton of damage. That would be absolutely ridiculous. But I think that increasing it maybe to 150 damage, which is what is that, a roughly 20% increase from its current damage status, giving it roughly 20% more damage, I think could balance it out quite nicely. So again, a larger radius for that explosion inside PvE, and of course more damage, I think would do Dragonfly very well. Now, I also toyed with the idea, of course, of giving it some sort of increase to its reload speed, but at that point it's treading on Firefly. Firefly has a smaller explosion, and it's solar, but it also does give you an increase to your reload speed. So I don't think that Dragonfly needs, that increase to its reload speed. Of course, the enhanced version does give you +5 to your reload, but +5 is not a ton. And it's only for the enhanced versions. But yeah, I think that I think that just doing those 2 changes would see Dragonfly put in a better place. Now, I also toyed with the idea of how could it synergize with subclasses, and an idea that I had is perhaps when you get a kill with that explosion, it will create the the appropriate subclass drop, or what are they called, like fire sprites, void breach, stuff like that. They'll create those when an enemy is killed by the explosion, and of course that will match the damage type of the weapon. So if you have a void bow with Dragonfly, it would create void breaches. If you had a solar bow with Dragonfly, it would create fire sprites. And I think that could be just another little something to add on top of it. And you could add a cooldown, you know, like a 1 second cooldown. That way you can't just absolutely spam fire sprites like you can with, you know, something like what is it called, Dragon's Breath. There you go. But I think that would also help build it into the subclass. Plus, of course, like, yeah, you can make void breaches, but void breaches are going to benefit substantially more on a void subclass as opposed to if you're using a solar subclass. So there is kind of that synergy there, but it also could be something that could benefit your your character outside of using, you know, X subclass, you know. So for example, you make an ionic trace, you know, and you're using void, it'll give you a little bit of all your ability energy back. Like, I think that would be pretty cool. But yeah, with that being said, that's what I think we should do for Dragonfly. I think doing that would see, you know, a substantial increase in its usage. Again, the trade-off between this and, you know, those subclass synergizing perks, you have a more immediate damage effect, but it doesn't synergize with the subclass directly. So anyways, yeah, that's my thoughts. Tell me your thoughts on Dragonfly in the description. Yeah, do me a favor, like the video. Helps the channel out a lot. Subscribe for more daily Destiny content and stuff like that. And do me one more favor, watch the videos you see here on the end screen, because for whatever reason YouTube thinks you'll like them. Guys, I'll see y'all next time. Bye for now.